Sabrina explains that she won't take advantage of him and they can share tasks. He says it's a great idea and that they should sleep because they have a lot of work to do the next day. Even without saying anything, he didn't feel good after being rejected by the girl. The next day, Howard wakes up to a loud noise and wonders what Sabrina is doing. He leaves the room and sees a bunch of boxes scattered around, so he asks her what she's doing. She says she's going to use the warehouse as a bedroom, and if he needs her, he can ring the bell. This makes him very irritated, but he controls himself and asks where the mannequin is. According to her, the thing was too scary, so she threw it away. He says she should have asked first. The mannequin was like his Wilson, the only friend he had all this time. In memory of Donald the mannequin, the best and only friend we ever had. Sabrina says she will fetch the mannequin if it's so important, but Howard leaves angrily, saying he'll do it himself. After everyone disappeared, he took some weapons from the police station and put them in a box. And on the first day with the girl, he noticed that a pistol had disappeared. Howard returns to talk to her and says it's better for each of them to wash their own clothes and make their own food, so they'll see each other less. She won't have to be alert all the time, and he won't feel strange when he sees her. Sabrina says that as a woman, she has to protect herself, and even though she's beautiful and rich, he won't be a gentleman just to make her feel good. He really hasn't gotten over her throwing away his doll. He also says that even though he's not a gentleman, he won't hurt her. 3 months have passed, the weather is getting colder, and the foul smell has dissipated. Sabrina is tending to the garden. Thanks to her, they now have vegetables to eat. They've hardly spoken since their first fight. She didn't seem to mind, but he can't bear the loneliness, so he talks to the mannequin as if it were a real person. He tells the mannequin they'll look for meat today, asking if they might get sick from eating spoiled meat from the market, or if they could eat rat meat but might die if there's a virus in it. Fortunately, he decides to try his luck fishing. Before going, he visits his other friend at the zoo, who happens to be none other than the tiger, surviving by eating other zoo animals and what little the protagonist brings him. Suddenly, the tiger behaves strangely, running towards some deer nearby. Howard notices that the zoo deer have no antlers, so these must be wild ones invading the city. Heavy rain begins with thunder and strong winds. The protagonist realizes it's not just a storm but a typhoon approaching. He rushes to the car, asking the mannequin how a typhoon could have formed so quickly, then remembers he's in a game, and the typhoon must be part of some challenge within it. Howard also remembers that Sabrina is out biking in the mountains, and must be near the top by now. He drives back home hoping to find his only real company in this world, but only sees the pots she was caring for, all destroyed, the door wide open, and he starts calling for her. With no response, he heads towards the mountain. The typhoon worsens, and he finally finds her. The girl is leaning against a pole, and something happened. She has a serious injury on her leg. She asks if she's going to die as the protagonist carries her. With a serious look, says that's not going to happen. They take shelter from the rain in the mountain mansion. Sabrina is all wet and trembling from the cold, and Howard asks to take a look at her wound. As stubborn as ever, refuses. He angrily tells her she'll end up dying if she keeps it up, but she continues to refuse help, saying she can take care of herself. Howard reveals he has a plan for the situation. Since they don't know how long the typhoon will last, he thinks it's best they move to the mansion, which is higher than the shelter. They need to gather things from there as quickly as possible and bring them to the mansion. As Sabrina is injured, it's better for her to stay in the mansion, and Howard warns her to avoid being poisoned by the smoke from the fire, leaving her irritated for being unable to do anything. The typhoon only grows stronger. Snow even starts to fall, and it's amid this weather that the protagonist leaves the mansion and heads towards the shelter. Upon arrival, the place is flooded, and since the water isn't electrified, the generator has also stopped working. Howard tries to retrieve the vegetables they harvested, but a rush of water and wind carries most of them away. They find themselves in a tough situation, with enough food for only 2 meals, and in the midst of this, fishing or even resorting to rats is impossible. Frustrated with everything that has happened, the protagonist seeks advice from his best friend, the mannequin. With no answers from it, he heads towards his other friend, the zoo tiger. He finds the tiger covered in injuries and asks the tiger to help him hunt. The protagonist says he'll take care of him, and tries to get the tiger into the car, but the tiger ignores him, sitting only at the zoo gate. Howard gets irritated, as if he were talking to a person and not an animal, and the tiger responds with a roar. He tells himself he shouldn't care so much about a game, accepts the tiger's decision, and heads to the car, leaving the tiger sitting alone in the middle of the typhoon. Howard is returning to the mansion, trying to sort out his thoughts along the way by conversing with the mannequin. When he arrives, something catches his attention. He stops the car, and Sabrina is lying on the ground. She explains she tried to fetch water to boil for them but fell and can't get up. Naturally, this irritates Howard. He carries the girl to the mansion, leaving her surprised, gives her a slap on the buttocks to scold her, and she yells, saying he'll be making decisions from now on. He throws her onto the bed, telling her he'll fetch the first aid kit, and she better not pull any tricks while he's gone. She screams she can take care of herself, and Howard retorts he's not pleased to have to help her, having enough problems of his own. He needs her to heal quickly to be of any help, or they'll starve. He tends to Sabrina's wound, and she asks what he plans to do now. He reveals he'll try to hunt the wild deer that started invading the city after everyone disappeared. The girl warns that if the deer caught his scent, they'll always be on alert when he approaches. He ponders on this for a moment, saying it doesn't matter much since they have weapons. Speaking of weapons, he found the pistol that had gone missing under her pillow when he went to get supplies at the shelter. He returns it to Sabrina, who asks if it wouldn't be better for him to keep the gun. He says he'll leave the weapon with her as a gesture of trust and bids farewell, needing to prepare for the hunt the next day. It's been 121 days since the game began. The mansion is covered in snow, and the protagonist is preparing for his first hunt. He thinks the deer must be in a suburban area slightly below the mansion, and now feels pressured by Sabrina's words. Having never killed even a chicken, the protagonist isn't confident he can kill a deer. As a precaution, he's also taking some fishing nets. Unbeknownst to him, he's being watched from afar by a pack of wild wolves. Howard arrives at the hunting spot, and the cold is bone-chilling. By the noise, the deer are nearby. He quickly turns, runs towards the sounds, and prepares to shoot, but once again the animals have fled. He's lost count of how many times this has happened. Every time, Howard hears the animals close by, rushes to them, and loses their tracks. He recalls Sabrina's words. It's as if they know all his moves, and he's just wasting time. Tired of the hunt, he heads to a river to try fishing. The current is strong due to the storm, but he's desperate for food and casts the net. The current starts pulling the net, and he tries to hold on tight because it's his only net, and he can't afford to lose it. Suddenly, the net is pulled with great force, and he can't hold on. Howard is dragged into the middle of the river and falls into the freezing water. The protagonist emerges from the freezing water, trembling with cold, thinking only that he needs to get back home and warm up before he dies of hypothermia. But he spots a deer right in front of him and hides to not be noticed. He can hardly believe it. This is the chance he needed. He searches for the rifle, but unable to find it, he'll have to make do with a shotgun. He aims at the animal, takes a deep breath before shooting, but when he fires, the recoil is stronger than expected and hits his face. The shot hits the tree beside the deer, which manages to escape. Now, in addition to almost freezing, he's also injured his face. Feeling stupid after losing so many resources and getting injured, he wonders if he'll end up starving to death. At that moment, he hears a noise and turns around. Behind him are some wolves, and he grabs the shotgun in case he needs to defend himself, but they realize they might get shot and leave. The protagonist finds it strange that they backed off but decides it's better not to waste more supplies. Howard returns to the mansion and enters the room. Sabrina is warming herself by the fire, seemingly wearing only a blanket, and she's surprised when the protagonist starts undressing. After all he's been through, he just wants to warm up a bit, and she says, embarrassed that he didn't need to take everything off. Amid his clothes, she sees a photo of the protagonist with a girl in his wallet. Sabrina asks if the girl in the photo is his girlfriend, but the protagonist says she's his ex-girlfriend. She continues to be curious and asks why they broke up. He explains that he wanted a family, but the girl wasn't ready for that, then asks if she had someone before everyone disappeared. Sabrina says yes. Her boyfriend was a doctor from MIT and the head of a big company. Howard finds it surprising that such a talented guy had such bad taste in women. This time, she turns irritated. How could he say that about her? He's left speechless, and she realizes she was rude and apologizes. Unaware, the blanket falls, and her breasts are exposed. She yells for the protagonist to leave the room, and he leaves, thinking about the wonderful sight he just had. The next day, the protagonist goes after the deer again, but all he manages to do is see them from afar. Whenever he tries to get closer, they disappear. It's understandable his difficulty. Besides having a short-range weapon, he had never held a real gun in his life. He keeps trying, without success. Days go by and at least Sabrina is talking more with him. She also doesn't complain about him coming back empty-handed from the hunts. The girl is getting weaker every day, and her wound also shows no signs of improvement. Howard tells her that he set up a trap, using stakes and some leaves to lure hungry animals.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed it and share with your friends. See you in the next video. Bye for now.